Hey everybody, Savagelandsnews coming in once again. This time with another lighthearted video. In our last lighthearted video, we covered my favorite mechanically designed Brute cards and what I really, enjoy about them and where I hope that the Rhinar cards continue to go in the future. But today, let's talk about my least favorite Rhinar cards. Probably not much of a surprise what they're going to be. Maybe one shocker in there for you guys. But this video is actually harder for me to make than the one where I was talking about the cards I like. I really do like a lot of the flexibility of Rhinar's cards. And I do like the different archetypes that Rhinar offers. But I do think some cards just put Rhinar in a box. And I also think that they lead to unfun experiences for the player and for their opponent. So let's dive into it. This is a emotional thing, right? These aren't good cards. They're not bad cards. Some of these cards are amazing. They're just a personal, right? Don't take this personally. It's just a lighthearted video. But let's dive into it. Okay, diving into it. These two cards are interesting, right? Because I do actually play the card on the right. I think it's a pretty okay card. But I think what was really bad about these cards is that they just didn't have... There's nothing innovative about them at all, right? Bone Basher is a worse romping club. Clearing Bellow is literally just a repeated over and over blue block 3 Intimidate. And I think a lot of us were really hoping for some spice from the Dori versus Rhinar set. The Dori players got some really cool stuff, man. Like, just really good cards that actually changed up their kit, that really did something really good for them, pushed Dori higher up in the meta, gave her some new avenues to explore. And then when we opened our Rhinar pack, we saw a Bone Basher, a Clearing Bellow, and a Alpha Rampage that we already had. I think it was more just a disappointment more than anything. Clearing Bellow is pretty good. Pack Call is pretty good. It's a blue, it's a yellow 6 that blocks 3. It could have been worse. But I think it was just a disappointment, or just having more generic cards that we already kind of had that really kind of rubbed us the wrong way, especially after I paid like $50 for it. And then I paid $50 more for it so I could get copies of each card and, But next on our list would be Swing Fist, Think Later. This card is, I genuinely think back in the day, in the WTR through Monarch period, I think LSS was a little bit afraid of Brute in general, right? They like flat nerfed Levia right before her release. They've come out and said a lot of the Brute cards from the early days are very below rate. And this card is so below rate that they legitimately reprinted it at a higher rate in the new set. And they called it something new, right? There's literally the exact same card that just came out, Madcap Charger, that's a 1-for-5 block 3 with a discard, go again. I'm not sure how many other heroes have had a card legitimately just upped by 1. I don't think there's much else to say about it. It's just like so below rate, right? Even with Romping Club, it's not good. Yeah, and I didn't like the. Honestly, another thing I don't like about this card is the flavor text, right? You've got these like monstrous savages who are eating people's skulls and like doing all this crazy stuff. Literally, like one brute is fighting 5 armed, individuals in the forest in one of the battle scenes, and then this guy's talking about his mama. I just don't love it. And then these two, very interesting, because Argh Smash is actually one of my favorite Brute cards in general. I think it is a Brute identifying card. Like, no other class does what Argh Smash does. It is so brutish. But I think that these two were the gateway drugs for rolling cards. And I think that we could safely blame these two cards and probably the common chess piece for building this kind of idea that Rhinar and Brutes in general should be throwing dice every time they want to play a card, right? I just don't like the idea, right? It is never a good experience for anybody on average, right? Nope, there's always one person not having fun. These two cards are probably the best out of all of the rolling cards in the game, right? Because it's not really that bad. You know, like Bonehead Barrier is a defense. You know, it can do some really cool things. It is unique. I like the idea of like shrugging off damage because I'm a brute. And you know, it's just not that great. And then Argh Smash is really cool identification brute class card that I actually run. I love it. I think it's super cool, but you know, it is a little annoying to be the dash player. And you spent all this time setting up your items and I roll a 6 and you're just like, a dice roll just ruined my game, you know? Like, I don't know. Maybe if it was like discarded or something else, it might be a little bit more fun or a little bit more interactable. I'm not sure, right? I think these were the gateway drugs for rolling cards. Oh, speaking of rolling cards, we're going to get into Everfest here. Everfest, man, where there are a bunch of cards in that set I don't like. For us to finally get a majestic piece of equipment after all of that time, and then we read it and we saw that you have to roll a 5 or a 6 to get any ability, and if you roll a 1 it just dies. Like, man, it kind of bothered me. And it blocks 1. It's like, oh my gosh, like, why does Runeblade get like a permanent 2 or 3 block piece of equipment that they can just pour resources into to generate more damage? Why do all these other classes get all these crazy majestic armor pieces, and then we get one that like you have to invest in a bunch of roll cards to even really get value out of? Like, unless you're rolling scab skins every turn, you know, like, are you going to run all of those rolling cards just to trigger skull crushers, and then you have that 1 in 6 and it literally doing nothing on your first turn? It's just kind of disappointing. Most of the people I know who even have this in their deck, the only reason they have it is because it blocks 1. That's where we are right now with our equipment. Like, we just want 1 block with no text on it. Kind of wild to me, right? I'm really hoping we get better equipment in the future. The other classes' equipment for a mid-range deck, this is a unique thought. Thought I have. I don't know if it's right. Whatever. I'm not a card designer, but I think that mid-range decks should have better armor than aggro decks, and like at least more defensive or whatever, right? But we don't. We have way weaker armor on average, right? Scabskins is our only piece of class equipment that blocks well. It's crazy to me. Blessing of Savagery. Yeah, I mean, I just don't get it. I don't know when you would ever use this, right? Like turn 0, you know, you put it on the table, you get 3 damage. It's a 1 for 3. Go 1, you have to pay for the 3 on your next turn. Like, you can't even block with your whole hand and like just drop Blessing of Savagery on the table. You have to have Tunic. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't know how this is. I don't know when you could even combo this. I do love the art on it though. Sick, right? And I like this idea. You see, this is one of the first brute cards that I'm aware of where they're showing some sort of hierarchy and societal kind of background, right? You see like a shaman-y brute. They have like carving. They're doing like Aztec style kind of blood sacrifice things. You can see that there's people watching. That's sick. Savage Land set's probably going to be amazing if there's like a shaman character like that. Oh my god, that would be so pumped. Like, but this card sucks. I don't know. This sucks. This card bothers me for a different reason. I think this card bothers me because it's good. Which is weird to say, right? This legitimately, when you map out like all of the brute damage and all of the things you can do with like a 2 or 3 or 4 card hand, right? Rolling Thunder typically has the highest spike of any card in the game when things go well. Like 3 card hand, this can do some dumb stuff, right? And I think that's what really bothers me, is because it's based on a dice roll. And so to me, there is nobody has fun when you play this card unless you hit the average. And I understand dice are actually inherently fair. Over the course of a lifetime of playing brute, you know, you're going to average a 3, whatever, right? You're going to average 3 damage. You're going to average rolling a 3. That should be what's happening. But like when you play this card and you hit a 6 and your opponent looks at your dice and it's just like, cool, sweet. Like, I'm glad you rolled a 6 there. I'm going to get high rolled. How fun, right? And then when you roll a 1, and your gloves explode, you're having no fun. And I just think that's terrible. I don't know. It's just too good for what it is. It's just too good for a dice roll, right? When things go well, it's amazing. When things don't go well, it sucks. But it's a really good card, and I really don't think there should be that many good or really good dice rolling cards. It's just my personal opinion. Oh, this card's so annoying too. This card encapsulates the nobody gets to have fun mentality, right? Like you roll a 4, 5, or a 6, and you just get 0 for 5. It's above rate. It has go again. This thing's stupid. It blocks 3. Like on paper, a 0 for 5 is incredible. And it's just another one of those things. I put this card down, I roll my dice, and either I have fun or you have fun. No, there's no middle ground here, right? There's nothing fun about this card. When it fires, there's no counterplay. When it doesn't work, there's no counterplay. Like, I guess I can roll Gambler's Gloves, but am I really going to do that, right? I just think this encapsulates the identity crisis that we kind of went down with Everfest. You know, I mean, it's probably a KO card, sure. But even in Blitz, man, like, you're giving KO a 0 for 5 when he gets to throw all these dice and might attack you for 16 with this, plus, you know, plus 5. I don't know. It's just not fun. And this one's a little harder for me, right? These two cards are actually good. You know, Pulping, Wild Ride, Bare Fangs, Tear Limb from Limb, all of these kind of like draw discard cards. I actually don't hate the idea of them, right? Don't get me wrong. I think that the risk reward play style, or like the more risky version of Rhinar, like is a fun place to experiment. It's a fun place to go down. But then they like tripled down on it, right? Like I think Pulping existing and Tear Limb from Lin existing are like, it's like a really nice place to be. Like Pulping has a clear weakness to it. It's got a clear pro. Even if things go wrong, it still does something. Tear Limb from Limb is just kind of like a crazy blue. Like if, you know, Rhinar just has it, it doesn't block, you know, whatever. But then they kind of double down in this set. They're like, here's just a bunch of cards that don't block, and here's a bunch of cards that you need to roll a dice for. I don't know, man. Like, and I feel like it also kind of traps Rhinar, right? Because like these cards are ridiculously good. If we get too much blue or 6 density, at some point there's going to be no risk running these cards, right? And so by these existing, that means that we can't get that much 6 density. It also means that there's like a theoretical limit they're going to have to put on how powerful Rhinar could be, because these cards do push the boundaries. You know, like Rhinar could never be the most aggressive deck in the game. If Rhinar is the fastest aggro deck in the game, he is going to LL in a month because he's doing too much damage and intimidating all your cards. And it's not fun to play against, right? Right? So I think these just push the limit in the wrong direction. They're up front very powerful. And the random hoop you're jumping through isn't a hoop. From how I feel, like there's not really a skill in playing this card. You're just picking up the top card of your deck and putting it in your hand and discarding something, right? Like it's not skillful. There's no skill there. There's no hoops to jump through with this card. Like the only hoop you have to jump through is building your deck. And right now, you know, you're going to shove in as many 6s as you possibly get to work, and then that's really the end of the story. So I don't know. This card, I think they went too far with the random draw and discard cards. Last but not least, this one might catch you a little bit by surprise, okay? Swing Big. Now, this one is an interesting point of conversation. So I was actually talking with one of the LSS developers, and you know, they mentioned that this was one of their least favorite cards that they've printed. It was along, you know, a bunch of other very powerful cards like Remorseless and Macho Grande and a lot of other cards. And as they were naming the cards, they threw out Swing Big, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. What the heck, man? Swing Big is one of my favorite cards because it's good. But then afterwards, I spoke with the developer and, you know, asked them, I was like, hey, what's up? Like, why? And the reason was that it's just a better version of every card we have with no real difference, right? It's just a 2 for 8. The 2 for 8 block 3 is the best card we have from an aggressive perspective. And then he kind of likened it to, well, if I wanted to make Bravo better, should I just print a Crippling Crush that does 1 more damage? And, you know, like, when he said it that way, it was kind of like, oh, yeah, sure, that makes a lot of sense, right? You know, I personally think the 2 for 8 does have a pretty acceptable counter to it, right? Like, getting a Quicken token for certain classes is actually really detrimental. And I do love this card because, like, it's what really pushed Rhinar up a whole, like, level of competitive viability. But I totally understand what he's saying, right? And this is another Everfest card, man. Like, they're all Everfest cards, right? Everfest is where Revel and Runeblood and Starvo came from, right? So I think it just pushed the boundaries, right? And it's, again, you know, it is very, very good. And there is no hoops. There's nothing unique about this card. You know, I guess for the Quicken token I think is pretty unique, but I see his point. You know, maybe we disagree. I disagree with the developer here, but that's okay. But on the right, you'll see my own custom card. I had that same developer draw me Swing Big the way he believes it should be. So he named it Swing Bigger, drew me a beautiful little picture there, signed it, and it has Swing Big should have had 7 power. You know, even a 2 for 7 block 3 would be lovely. I would love a 2 for 7 block 3. Please give me one. That would be incredible. Please, please, please. And with that, those are my opinions on the worst designed Brute cards. You know, this video was much harder to make than the cards that I love for Rhinar, which I think speaks a lot that Rhinar's cards are pretty awesome. There's a lot of diversity to them. There's a lot of different playstyles that Rhinar supports currently. Yeah, let's see how they go in the future, right? Each set has kind of been a whiplash for Rhinar. A lot of different directions they seem to be taking them every time they release like a supplemental set. So who knows what the next set will be. Have a great day. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, you know, and just give me your thoughts. I'll see you around. Bye.